It's Paul again, and we're talking about, I guess, the second phase of our solar journey. So in the first phase, I talked about the calculations. I really thought I got those things right. And by talking to AM Solar, I was talking to Carly up there. She actually got me on the right track, and my calculations that I did before were totally wrong. Totally screwed them up. So what she did is she got me on the right track, showed me a different way to use the calculations. And I'll show you that in a second. But, you know, what I was still looking at is every time I looked on the web, I was trying to find that easy spreadsheet to use or calculation, and I just couldn't find anything really out there that was relevant today. A lot of the old sheets had, you know, TVs that we don't use, 19-inch TVs, and just appliances that weren't in today's world. So I've come up with my own based on what AM Solar guided me through, and I'll show you the way that we've calculated it. One thing you'll see is I've, on the refrigerator line, I saved that for later, and I'll show you why I did that, because the way you have to calculate it, it's a little different than you would normally calculate. So in this case, here's my fridge. We'll save that for later. But I've used my 120 volt devices as a guide here, because those are the big power hogs. There are some DC appliances that I have, you know, like phone chargers and that kind of stuff. But I've added those in later. But basically, if you start off from watts, and an example is my iMac, right? You know, I looked it up. My model uses 86 watts. I figure I use it 8 hours a day, or Nancy does. And my total watt hours, and then that converts to amp hours. And the same thing with my PC laptop. Of course, in this case, I'm only actually charging it for 4 hours a day, and then the rest of the time I get, you know, for free. So I don't have, even though I use it 8 hours a day, I only have to charge it half that time. Then I use a radio, and then I put in my cooktop, which is an induction cooktop. But you can see, especially this beast up here, just my AC circuits alone are 401.2 amp hours, and I calculated approximately 100 amp hours of DC. So for this rig with a residential refrigerator, I need approximately 501 amp hours of battery. So if I'm looking at AGM batteries, I can only go to a 50% rate of discharge. So that means I need like 1,000 amp hours of battery. So I don't know if I can even fit 1,000 amp hours of battery in this rig. So I got to do one or two things. I've got to reduce my usage, which is the easiest way, or I'll add in a little generator time, like maybe start the generator for an hour each day and give it its initial boost, and then I can use the rest of the solar for that. So you know, I'm okay with that. If I have to use a little bit of generator, that's not a big deal. I just don't want to run them all day long, and I want to be, you know, mostly on solar. Like I talked about previously, the residential refrigerator needs a whole different way of doing the calculations. So I think the easiest way to do this is just kind of show you on the board too. So if you look on, when you buy a residential refrigerator new, you get what somewhat looks like this, is your energy guide. It's a little yellow tag. And the way you want to calculate it, it'll tell you how much you're going to use per year. But the figure you're really concerned about is how many kilowatt hours does that use per year. And then the calculation, in order to do the refrigerator right, is you take that figure, divide it by how many days a year, 365, and then you come up with your 1843 watts per day. So what happens if you do this the wrong way, if you take the actual tag off the inside of the refrigerator where it tells you your 120 volts and it's like, I think it's 5.8 amps in this one, right? 8.5 amps. So if you take that calculation and do 8.5 amps, which would be the way you do a normal calculation, and you do it like this, you wind up with 24,480 watts per day. So you can see that really messes up your calculations. And this is really where I made my big mistake, was I was calculating the residential refrigerator incorrectly. So hopefully all of us who have this will see this, and I think this will help them. So the main reason why this other calculation doesn't work, because you have 8.5 amps, and you think, oh, that's what this thing's using, but really that only uses that power when it's running the compressor. So refrigerators have, what's called a duty cycle, as in many appliances have. So, you get your running, I don't know what the normal draw is, but let's just call it 1 amp or a half amp. And then when the compressor's on, it goes to 8.5, does its cooling cycle, and then goes back down again, back to 8.5. So what I've been told is this is approximately 20% of the refrigerator. So that's why if you don't account for that duty cycle, you wind up with this massive number, and of course you'd need a whole other trailer to put your batteries in. So now that I've got the calculations kind of figured out, the next step is talking to an installer. So originally I thought I was going to be able to do a lot of this myself. Because of time, I'm enlisting the help of one of the authorized AM solar technicians that does this. So we're trying to work out a date. And when I do, hopefully I'll be able to record this and show you the installation. Anyway, we'll catch you guys later. Thanks for listening.